So today we're back on anime expeditions, and I want to talk about equipment, or I might call them relics throughout the video, I don't know. That's what we're talking about in this video, stuff like the best equipment to run. So I hope you guys found the video helpful. If you do, leave me a like or subscribe. But anyways, let's get into it. Alright, hello guys. Today I want to talk about equipment, because I got a couple comments about it on my last video, and equipment is kind of the most important thing in the game after like level 40, this is kind of all you do. If we look at my Kenpachi for example, I have some pretty okay equipment on him, and his damage number at max is 44.6. If I take all that off, just to show you again, his damage goes down to 35.7, so he pretty much gains 10k damage from it. Equipment is super important. So we're going to talk about that today, the best equipment builds to run on people, and also how to get them. I did mention this in my last video that you should be getting into the Expedition Hub and upgrading your armory. You can craft pretty much every equipment in the game. You do have to index the secret ones first, I've been told, so you can't craft these secret ones without getting them before. But there is a bunch of different equipment in the game, some of it is craft only, so if you don't have the armory upgraded, you probably didn't even know some of this equipment existed. I'm hovering over it all so you can see these stats that they give. And I'll show you an example here. Here's another question I got, is how to get higher rarity relics or equipment. If you craft or farm an equipment, it's going to be blue. Then you have to go to the reroll equipment section of the armory and re-roll the stats of your blue equipment. You can see right there the percentage of the buff as well. And anything above 50% is yellow, legendary. And anything above like 90% is mythic. You can see the chances right here. So pretty much that is what you farm late game, is you go for these equipment rerolls and just spam them. Try and get yellow stats on stuff. If you don't, whatever. You should one day have full legendary or some mythics on your important equipment, your main team, and it'll boost your damage by quite a bit. So to talk about certain builds and like the best equipment to actually use on people, first up for damage we have the 15% from the 3 Swords of Hell. Otherwise we have the Shinigami Sword giving you up to 15% for the enemies in your range, and a little bit of crit chance and damage. If you're trying to run a pure damage unit like my Kenpachi for example, this is who I like my Yuta to scale off. You want to just give him as much damage as you can. Otherwise I have like Freerin here for example, her build is Shinigami Sword, and then I have the magic book on her because she's a magic unit, and it goes up to a 20% damage increase. On any like debuffing unit where you want them to attack pretty often, I'm running the kunai for SPA and then the accursed equipment for SPA. The build you run really depends on what unit you're using, like I just run range on Forbidden Teacher for example. But overall, if you wanted an equipment tier list to look at, I did make one, so I'll show you right now. Show you guys my equipment tier list really quickly. Here's what I ended up making. So we have the unit relics right here that are kind of ordered by how important they are. So for example, if you have an Umaki on your team and you have like Diane on your team, right, the boulder unit, and you have to farm for both of those relics eventually, I would start by farming for Inumakis because it's kind of more important. So pretty much left to right on the unit relic section tells you how much they really matter to what the unit does. For the normal equipment down here, first up we have the Shinigami Sword. This is the Go equipment. This is, in my opinion, the best equipment in the game. Gives you a little bit of crit, gives you a lot of damage. Overall, the best piece for doing more damage. And then we have the Amazing category, so all of these are really good. The 3 Swords from Hell for raw damage, Enhanced Katana for crit, Kunai for damage and SPA, Cursed Equipment for pure SPA, Dragon Hilt is pretty good for crit, and then Rate Cape is pretty good for raw damage and range. Overall, everything on this list is supposed to be ranked left to right of like best to worst, but I do think it kind of depends on what you're using. For example, some units really like SPA reduction, so they want to go for these two right here. And then the situational category, we have pretty much everything else. These all depend on what you're using. You can't just kind of throw these on anyone. Well, you can, but the stat bonuses aren't really good. So for example, the red finger specialized for bleed, so like Choso or Yuta. Magic book is for magic units, so like Freerin. Katana is for physical, Staff of Chaos for magic, Warrior's Axe for physical, Elf Suitcase for magic, Soul Splitter for physical, and then the bamboo bottle is for active abilities, which right now kind of only applies to Lady Giant, so you could maybe run this on her, but it still isn't really that good. And then the Magic Orb and Pirate Slingshot are pretty good for range. But yeah, a lot of the equipment are kind of situational. Hopefully this tier list kind of helps you understand which ones you should prioritize though. And now back to the game. Hopefully that kind of showed you which equipments are the best. Of course it is just my opinion though. Now one important question you guys might still have is how to farm the orange cubes, the equipment rerolls. The best way to farm equipment rolls are from the challenges. You do your daily challenge, weekly challenge, and your regular. You want to be farming the middle challenge for this one. And whenever you're waiting for challenges to reset, you should farm the expeditions. These can drop the cubes as well. And what I like to do is start it up, look at the map, and then reset if there's no equipment rerolls in it, because that's kind of the only reason I farm these anymore. So those are the basics of equipment. Hopefully this video kind of helped you out a little bit. And I do want to go more in detail on one unit. I saw a lot of comments in my last video being in denial about Unbound Yuta, okay? I hate being the bearer of bad news with Unbound Yuta not being the best. You don't want to have Unbound on Yuta. And I'm going to show you exactly why in this video. And it ties into what we're doing today because the equipment on Yuta is really important. You want to run a crit build on him. And I want to kind of show off the damage increase. Don't mind the precision too, I'm kind of in between traits right now, okay? Ideally you would have Forsaken, but I want to show off what Yuta's actually good for, which is not his own damage, okay? For today's demonstration, I'm using my Kenpachi, and every time he attacks, he's doing about 15 to 16k, so kind of ignore that number when it pops up. But look at these damage numbers, right? So Yuta on his own, with Kenpachi in his range though, we're gonna place him right here. Yuta on his own when he hits something, applies bleed for 77, and the actual attack damage is like 700 as we saw there. So Yuta is doing 709, but then on the third attack, he's going to do a follow-up attack for Kenpachi's damage, and we saw it right there with like a burst of 7,000, but I want to show you what happens when that crits, okay? So if we place Yuta down in Kenpachi's range, we can see him. Every attack, he will personally do 709. When it crits, it does about 1.5k right there, the bleed does 77, so ignore those three numbers, right? 1.5k, 777, ignore those. And then when that crits, you saw that 14k? That was Yuta's follow-up attack off of Kenpachi. So if you think about that, right? If you have one unbound Yuta, where his attack is maybe doing like, I don't know, if we max him out, how much is Yuta doing? 3.9k? If you triple that, he's doing like maybe 15k, right? Now imagine 3 Yutas with their follow-up attacks critting off of a maxed out Kenpachi. Because it's doing a lot more. It's doing a lot more than Yuta would be doing. And this is without Forsaken, you know, I'm running Precision too, so it could have a lot more crit chance and crit damage. Let me show you again, when Yuta follow-up attacks off of Kenpachi, normal hit right here, never mind that crit, 13k. 13k and it does it like 3 times. So really when he crits, he's doing almost as much damage as my Kenpachi, and this is one Yuta. This is one Yuta where I could have 3 down. So hopefully that kind of demonstrates if you run a crit build on this guy, and his follow-up attacks are consistently critting, you're getting way more value than the unit does on his own. So it's not really worth having unbound on this guy. I'll show you the damage numbers again, right? So my Yuta attacking on his own will max him out for this one. On his attacks, he's doing like, what, 3k? 3 ticks of 3k when he crits, because it'll be doing 9k? Yeah, 3 ticks of 3k. When he follow-up attacks with Kenpachi, look at that. 38k. And 3 ticks of it, bro. 3 ticks of that, and that wasn't Kenpachi attacking, we can see Kenpachi attack right there. So that was Yuta, follow-up attack using Kenpachi's damage, and critting for 38k, 3 ticks of it. Now keep in mind, you can place down 3 Yutas next to somebody, so we put them all around our Kenpachi, and all of them can do those follow-up attacks for like 30k by critting off Kenpachi's damage. So that's kind of what I was talking about in my last video, with Unbound on Yuta not being good. Here's like an actual physical demonstration you can watch me do. Or if you were watching the damage numbers, you can rewind or whatever. Yuta can crit off Kenpachi's damage and do so much more than he's doing. And you don't have to upgrade Yuta at all. You know, it's 0 upgrades for the passive to be working. Of course, he'll do a little bit less damage. But this unit is pretty much a support, and you want to be running the relics I have on him, which is pretty much the most crit chance possible. We have the Katana and the Shinigami sword. And imagine if I had Forsaken on this guy. I mean, I have Precision 2 on him, and the follow-up attacks are doing like 30k, and 3 ticks of 30k, so like 100k total. I don't know, something like that. It's crazy, man. I'm telling you, Yuta is a support. Okay, you guys gotta buy into it. So hopefully I don't see as many comments this time coping with Unbound Yuta, okay? Of course, it's not horrible. Like, you can use this guy for progression, especially if you roll Unbound on Yuta, and use it to clear all the story or whatever. But if you're trying to be a tournament player and like actually get tournament rewards, you know, like my little ramen guy skin to my right, you gotta be taking advantage of Yuta. And that means you gotta run him as a crit unit, you gotta run him as more of a support. And hopefully this video kind of showed that off and explained equipment. I don't know. I don't really have too much else planned for this video. It's kind of a short one. By the way, on a similar note, let me know if you guys want tournament videos in the future, or maybe like live streams while I'm doing it. I don't know, personally I was kind of thinking like it wouldn't really be helpful because there's different brackets, and the different brackets actually have like different conditions and modifiers and stuff, I think. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the modifiers are different from player to player, depending on what bracket you're in. I did try the duo tournament. I thought this was really fun. Someone sniped our number 5, we got number 6, so that was kind of unfortunate, but I don't know, the tournaments are pretty fun in this game. Let me know if you guys want to see me grind them in the future. But either way, thank you to my channel members for making the video possible. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day.